Alright guys, we are here at Texas Card House in North Austin. We are checking in for a live stream tonight. So one of my buddies, Anderson, who I talk to all the time on Instagram, he plays a lot at the Dallas location on their live stream, and he is hosting one tonight, the Austin location, and he invited me along. So really excited about it. Except that I've got like 4 hours of sleep under my belt at best, and I don't function very well when I haven't gotten my sleep. I used to better when I was younger, not so much anymore. So this might be a little bit of a shit show. Hopefully I don't punt too badly, but brought $4,000. It's a $1,000 buy-in, match the stack 2-5 game, so hopefully we don't have to spend all that, but I got it if we need it, so let's see how it goes. Commentating tonight, we've got William Lahti, who is very often on the TCH streams as a commentator, along with special guest commentator Slow Poker Time. So the very first hand to kick off the stream is a PLO Doubleboard Bomb Pot. We don't have a great hand, but we've got a few connected cards, and we do have some spades, although it's 7 high, not really banking on that. And we end up flopping second pair along with an open-ended straight draw on the bottom board. There's 3 or 4 checks to us, and I decided to go ahead and take a stab at this one. In retrospect, I think checking here is the better option, but I go ahead and put the bet out since it's pretty hard for someone to have a 6 here since 3 of them are already on the board, and I'm hoping that we just don't get raised here. We end up just getting one call from Aaron in the 9 seat, who does have the K6, although we don't know that for sure. But we end up turning the nuts on the bottom board with our 9 high straight, so it's exactly what we're hoping to hit, and I don't mind continuing the story here. Interestingly, we've also got the second jack that comes in on the top board, so if he does have a 6, it could be a little bit intimidating to face a big bet here, so I go ahead and continue with the story. The river is a pretty bad one for us. It does bring in the backdoor flush on the bottom board, so we don't have the nuts anymore, unfortunately. My concern here is that if we check on the river, we're probably going to face a pot-sized bet, as that's pretty common in these PLO Bomb Pot hands when somebody's got a lock on a hand. And even if they don't, if your opponent shows weakness on a river card like this, it's easy to put on the aggression and try to just scoop it with a big bet. Even though we don't have a lock on the bottom board anymore, I'm thinking that it's going to be pretty hard for our opponent to do anything other than just call if he only has trips on top. It's pretty hard for him to have a boat since the board is double paired, so I'm hoping to just get a call here and take down half the pot. Unfortunately, you can see from the graphics that Aaron did hit a boat on the river with 6s full of 5s, so he's really only losing to pocket jacks or jack 5, so he's virtually got the second nuts at this point. He's got a lock on the hand, so after we make the bet, he makes a huge raise. We don't have the flush, even though our straight's the best hand, but it's hard for us to continue at this point since we really don't know what he's representing and which board he's trying to say that he's got here. So facing this big river bet, unfortunately, I've got to throw the hand away, and we're down about $250 on the very first hand. About 20 minutes later, we've got our first interesting holdem hand for the night. There's a $10 straddle, and Anderson raises to 40 in the hijack. Ethan calls in the cutoff, and we look down at pocket kings, so second best hand in holdem, definitely going to raise it up here. It's a great opportunity to squeeze with us being on the button too, so we might not get some respect, which is a pretty great spot to be in when we've got a legitimate holding. Considering the call in between, I go for a pretty big raise here. I make it 5x the original raise, so $200. Folds back around to Anderson, who only has king 10 offsuit. Not a great hand. He throws it away. So I'm hoping Ethan joins along, but he throws his hand away too, so we just take it down. Not a bad result. 10 minutes later, we open with pocket 6s in early position, and we end up getting 3-bet by downhill. Gets back on us, and realistically, I don't think we're getting the right odds to call, but at the time, I throw the chips in, hoping for a favorable flop, and it comes down ace high. We've got position on the hand, downhill checks to us, and I feel like if we had an ace here, I probably would just check back here to slow things down a little bit. The turn really shouldn't change anything, and downhill checks a second time. I feel like he probably doesn't have pocket aces here with the flush draw out there and some straight draws. I feel like he'd probably start betting at this point, thinking he's probably got a hand like kings, queens, jacks, some kind of big pocket pair that's afraid of the ace. I'm wondering if we can push him off his pair by betting here and to get on the river, so I put out a bet here of about $110. He ends up making a pretty standard call, and the river bricks out with an offsuit 3. He checks to us a third time, and I continue the story with a bet of about $300. It doesn't take too long before throwing in the chips to call, and as you can see, our hand is no good. Looking back at this hand now, I think if we're going to try to steal the pot, we need to bet bigger on the turn and the river. We probably need to bet a little bit more so that we can set ourselves up for an all-in on the river. As it stood, we bet about 1/3 pot on the flop and about 55-60% pot on the river, so not huge bets, not going to put the pressure on like I want to. I think if we want to put the pressure on, we've got to put bigger bet sizes out there. So we made the right read, didn't make the right bet sizes, didn't work out for us, and I end up adding on for another $500 here to bring our stack back up to 1,000. 15 minutes later, there is a triple straddle, so it's 2, 5, 10, 20, 40. We've got pretty good position in the hijack, and we look down at ace 10 offsuit. I raised to about 3x for $125, though with the straddles, I think we should make it closer to 140 or maybe 150. It folds around to Doug in the second straddle who calls, and then downhill in the last straddle, 3-bets us again, making it $600. So it's 4x our original bet, and I'm just thinking, this guy is playing so aggressively, this is the second time he's 3-bet us, I feel like he can't always have it, and I'm also kind of thinking, why such a large bet? I can't imagine that he's got a super strong hand with as big a bet as he's making here. And so I end up convincing myself that he might just have kind of like a weakish pair. Our ace 10 could be a coin flip against such a hand. I decide to go with it and end up pushing all in. Doug gets out of the way. Obviously we get called since we can see he's got pocket kings here. Our ace 10 is no good. His kings hold up and we get stacked. So we're down about $1,800 only 30 minutes into the stream at this point. 5 minutes later, there's another double straddle, so we're playing 2, 5, 10, 20 this one. Ethan makes a small raise to $45, and we look down at pocket jacks. With us being way out of position compared to the rest of the table, I definitely want to make a bigger raise here, so I make it $200. It folds around to downhill in the first straddle, and he ends up 3-betting us yet again, making it $500. The last two players fold, and I'm thinking, well, if this is it, this is it. I can't imagine that we're going to lose again, but who freaking knows? So we're just going all in here, hoping for the best. We can't fold our jacks here, so get the money in. He calls, and he says our hand is good when he sees it. So feeling a little bit better here, and the flop makes us feel great as it comes down Jack A8, giving us a boat right off the bat. So not too worried at this point. Don't know what he has, but hoping there's no bigger cards that he hits. Obviously, you can see he's drawing dead, so we're in a good spot here, and building our stack back up a bit. 15 minutes later, we've got another PLO double board bomb pot, and this time we've got King 9 deuce with the King of Diamonds. So we end up flopping the nut flush draw along with the gut shot on the top board, and nothing but bottom pair on the second board. The action ends up checking around, so we get a free turn where we see a 4 peel off on the top board and a deuce on the bottom board. So now we've got trips on the bottom board along with our draws on top. We're only losing to a 5 on the bottom board, which there's only one 5 remaining in the deck. Hopefully nobody's got it. Obviously, we can see Mike in the 8 seat has it, but don't know that given the action on the flop, and I'm willing to lead out here with our pretty strong hand and draws. I make it $50, and we end up getting 4 callers. We end up getting there on the river with the nut flush on the top board, but our hand doesn't improve on bottom, so no boat, unfortunately. But knowing that we're winning half the pot, I'm definitely going to lead out here, and I make it $200. Mike, who's right behind us, ends up pushing all in for a little over twice our bet, around $450, which I'm not really happy to see since we're only going to be winning half the pot here probably. And with his push, it's probably going to kill the action, meaning we're not going to get calls from anybody else in the hand most likely. It ends up folding to Anderson, who's the only other person who's most likely to call us here with the jack high flush draw. He ends up making a good fold and getting away from it, so obviously we're going to call here. We end up just chopping the pot with Mike. Don't get any extra money, unfortunately, but still happy to take it down. 5 minutes later, we're in the small blind, and there's a $10 straddle. Anderson makes a 4x raise in the cutoff, and Ethan calls on the button. We wake up with pocket kings in the small blind, so we're definitely going to 3-bet here, and being out of position with a raise and a cold call, I want to squeeze a little bit on the bigger side, and I make it $200. Just Anderson calls in position, so we're heading to the flop heads up. And we end up getting a pretty safe flop as it comes down 6 high with 2 diamonds. So unless he called with pocket 6s, pocket 3s, pocket deuces, which is probably not the case, we're going to be good here most of the time. I think we're just going to c-bet and take it down, and that ends up being exactly what happens. So no real exciting action, but we're starting to build our stack back up from our initial losses up front. In the very next hand, there's a $10 and $20 straddle. Action folds around to Ethan in the cutoff, who limps in. It's a pretty weak line considering he's in late position. We don't have a great hand here with 8-6 offsuit, but I'm wondering if we can steal away here with a big raise. I 4x his bet to $80, and it folds around back to Ethan, who decides to go ahead and make the call, so we're heads up to the flop. And we get pretty much the perfect flop given our exact hands when it comes down 10-8-6, giving us bottom 2 pair and Ethan top pair. He checks to us, and we're definitely c-betting here. I make it 125, and Ethan's short. He immediately raises all in, and we make the call. I agree to run it twice. Our hand holds on both boards, and we scoop a nice pot.
You could say that Huggy 86'd Ethan. All right, I'm taking off, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
10 minutes later, after busting Ethan, there's a new player on our right. He kind of gives me the impression that he's a bit of a whale. Just something about his personality. He bought in big. I kind of get the impression that he wants to be aggressive and push some money around and try to get people out of pots. So that kind of influences my action here on the next hand. There's a $10 straddle, and I raise first to act with ace-deuce suited. It folds around to Anderson, who calls in the big blind, and the player on our right makes a 3-bet. Like I said, he's been playing kind of aggressively. I do put in the call here, although I think 4-betting or folding is probably the better option. And all three of us end up taking a flop. It comes down 10 high rainbow, and the whale c-bets here, which I'd expect him to do with 100% of his hands. Given that I think he's 3-betting here with anything, and the fact that we've got a couple backdoors with the possible backdoor flush, the backdoor straight, I decided to go ahead and float once. Anderson gets out of the way, and we're heads up to the turn. Unfortunately, the turn doesn't help us. The whale continues the story. I don't think there's anything to do here other than get out of the way, so I go ahead and throw our hand in. 5 minutes later, there's a $10 straddle, and Aaron raises to 35 in early position. There's one call before it gets to us, and we look down at pocket fives in the small blind. Definitely a good hand to call with here, so I put in the chips, and the three of us take a flop. And it's a pretty good flop, as it comes down 9-5 king with 2 hearts, giving us bottom set. I check, as I'd pretty much do here with almost 100% of my hands, and as expected, Aaron c-bets for half pot, making it $60. I think we could call or raise here. I feel like if we call here, Aaron's probably going to take another stab on the turn given how he's been playing, so I just throw in the 60 chips to call. The turn's pretty much a blank. It's an offsuit 4, and I stick with the plan, checking it over to Aaron again.
Aaron does pick up a cut shot on this 4 of spades turn.
Hey, you're upsetting the baby.
Aaron going to pick the bait. He makes it 200. I'm hugging him, just calling again. This board really didn't get any scarier with the 4.
I think about calling here, but I'm a little worried about the 2 hearts out there. I think we probably got the best hand at this point, but I really don't want to let a heart draw get there for free. So I am more inclined to raise here. If I did know Aaron's exact hand, I'd probably just call again. He's really just drawing to a deuce at this point for the straight. There's nothing else that would help him, and I think if he misses, we could check again on the river, hoping to get another bet out of him. Obviously, I don't know that at the table. I'm really kind of worried about the heart. If I had thought about it a bit longer, I think I would have recognized that the $200 bet into a $240 pot was a bit more indicative of him trying to price out a flush draw that I might have, and not one that he's actually representing here. Probably more likely to have like ace-king or king-queen on his end. So if I had thought about it a bit more, I probably would have just called, but what I ended up doing is putting in a pretty big raise. Obviously, it's a bit too big given his exact hand. He can't call here, just hoping to hit a deuce for his gut shot. He throws his hand away, and we take down a pretty good pot.
I don't mind the check raise there. I mean, if the heart hits, that could just stall the action for both sides. And
You could justify either line for sure.
I'm sure if Huggy knew how far behind.
Yeah, like if he knew Aaron had absolute butt kiss, then absolutely just let him keep firing if that's what he wants to do.
Just a few hands later, we pick up pocket 8s in the low jack. There's a $10 straddle and it folds to us, so we're definitely putting in a raise here, and I make it $35. Sam, sitting to our immediately left, makes the call, and then Aaron, who's directly across from us in the 9 seat, 3-bets to 175. Action folds back to us, and I'm immediately thinking about a comment he made maybe 10 or 20 minutes ago at the table. I can't remember his exact comment, but it was one out of frustration of not being able to get hands, and I'm kind of thinking that he might be trying to force something here, just take advantage of a squeeze opportunity against what looks like a late position raise that could be any 2 cards, really. Obviously, we've got a legitimate hand. It's not a great pocket pair, but it's a pretty good one, mid-range pocket pair. I don't expect that he's going to 3-bet with a worse pocket pair here, probably. Like 7s might be the worst hand he'd do it with here. But I'm thinking there's a lot of other suited cards that he could be doing this with, and as you can see on your screen, that's exactly what's happening here. Given my read, I decided to go ahead and put in a 4-bet, making it $500 straight. Sam on our left folds, and Aaron doesn't take long before throwing it away, so we read the situation exactly right, and we take down a pretty nice pot without having to see a flop.
Keep trying.
10 minutes later, we've got Queen Jack offsuit in the small blind. There's a $10 straddle, and action folds all the way around to the blinds, which has been pretty rare in this game where there's been pretty much a raise every hand. We've got 2 Broadway cards. They're not suited. We're out of position, but I think it's a good enough hand to raise given that there's only 2 players left behind us to act. Since we are out of position though, I do want to raise a little bit on the bigger side, so I 5x the straddle, making it $50. We end up getting called by Mike in the straddle, so we're heads up to the flop. It's not a great flop for our hand. It comes down 3 low cards. They're not really connected, but I also don't imagine that it's a hand that should hit most of Mike's calling range, unless he's got a hand like 8-7, 8-6, something like that. I think we could check or bet here. I think if we had an ace, I'd be a little bit more inclined to check possibly. With us only having queen high, I'm more inclined to bet just because I want to take it down against another random hand that might benefit from a free card or might have us dominated. So I go ahead and put out a bet of $65. Mike thinks for a bit, and eventually he puts out a raise for $110. He hasn't really gotten out of line that I've seen at the table so far, so it's hard for me to imagine he's doing this with anything but a legitimate hand, and obviously we've got queen high. Can't really face a raise here, especially given his image at this point, so there's nothing for us to do other than fold. Good play by Mike, gotta get away from this one, and he takes it down with a good bluff. 20 minutes later, there's another double straddle for $10 and $20, and we've got 5-4 suited in late position. Our raise is $65. It folds to Mike on the button, who 3x's our bet, making it $190. When it folds back to us, honestly, Mike's not that deep here. I think we probably should just fold and get away from it. I think he's a little bit deeper than he is at the time, though, so I end up putting in the call, hoping to crack whatever he's got. We end up getting a pretty favorable flop as it comes down Jack-9 deuce with 2 hearts, so we've got the flush draw along with a backdoor straight draw. Mike c-bets here for $150. I'm expecting him to do that here with pretty much his full range given his 3-bet pre-flop. With this flop being as favorable as it is for our hand, and the fact that he's only got another 400 or so behind, I think ripping it all in here is probably our best bet. If he's got 2 Broadway cards that missed, ace-king, ace-queen, something like that, he's probably going to fold, and if he has an actual overpair, we're actually not that far behind equity-wise on this flop. So I push all in. He obviously makes the call with his pocket queens that you can see on your screen. Mike has to run it twice, and we're off to the races. The turn brings a 5 on the first board, giving us an extra 5 outs for 2 pair of trips, but unfortunately we blank out on the river, and on the second run out we pick up a 3 on the turn, giving us an extra 6 outs for a straight along with our flush draw. The river blanks out again, unfortunately, and Mike scoops this one, so pretty unfortunate run outs on both boards, given all the outs that we had, but can't be too mad since we knew we were probably behind when the money went in, and the best hand held up. 15 minutes later, we've got my favorite hand from the stream on this night. There's a $10 straddle, and it folds around a downhill in the cutoff, who makes it 30. It folds to us in the big blind, and we've got a suited ace, ace-4 specifically, which feels like a good 3-betting hand here versus what I expect is a pretty wide range from downhill in the cutoff. I decided to go with a 3-bet, making it 125, hoping to take it down, but not too mad if we get called. Downhill does make the call, and we are heads up to the flop. It comes down king-queen 8, which is a great flop for our 3-betting range. Obviously not a great flop for our exact hand here, but downhill doesn't know that. Gonna put out the c-bet here. I make it 130, and obviously we can see the downhill hit top pair, so he makes the call. The turn card is a great one for our hand. It gives us a lot more equity. It's the 10 of hearts. So now we've got the nut flush draw along with a gut shot to Broadway. Any jack will help us out as well. I feel like downhill's probably going to call any bet here given his call on the flop. He's got to have a king or queen in his hand probably. Maybe jack 10, which I don't think is going to fold here with the 10 coming out. So I don't really feel like there's any benefit to betting out here. I get the idea, though, that we could check here. I think checking is beneficial if it goes check-check. But if he does make a bet, I'm kind of thinking that we could put in a big check raise here and not feel bad about getting the money in since we've got probably a fair amount of equity against a good range of hands that he's got here. Our equity is only not that great if he's got 2 pair since our ace is not a valid out at that point. So if he's got a hand like king queen or king 10, queen 10, something like that, then we've got to hit exactly a straight or a flush. An ace won't give us the win. If he's only got 1 pair though, top pair, then an ace would probably give us the win unless he's got a hand like king jack. So I'm feeling like putting in a check raise here might be our best move. So I go ahead and make the check. Downhill ends up checking back though, so we get a free river, and it's the deuce of hearts, so we pick up the absolute nuts. And even better, though I don't know it at the time, downhill ends up picking up 2 pairs. So this is a perfect river card for us here. Given that downhill's been one of the more aggressive players at the table here, I feel like we could make a small bet here, trying to induce a raise out of what looks like weakness, but obviously we know we've got a strong hand. We're just trying to get a raise so that we can come back over the top and get all the money in if we can. So I throw out a single black chip for $100.
I know it's difficult.
Huggy can bet here, and he's going to go for just 100. He goes pretty small. If he knew what downhill had, he'd probably go a lot bigger than that. Unless he's trying to induce a raise.
That's what I was thinking.
It would be really awesome if downhill raised with like what could easily be the best hand. That is a disguised 2 pair. And he slides out a whole bunch of those green $25 chips. We'll get the exact number. Looks like 700 total. And Huggy has 1 move here, which is going to be to move all in. It's just a matter of how much of a show he wants to put on first to, like, there it is.
Like William said, we've got one move. It's all in. We want to get the money in there. We're hoping for a call. We're begging for a call. We don't have a ton behind compared to the 3-bet size. It's about 1,000 more to call. Obviously, we can't see the screen. We don't know what he has. I'm hoping he's got a big 2-pair hand like King Queen, King 10, something like that can call. Maybe a straight with Jack 9. I don't think he's got anything better than that. I don't think he's got trips. I don't think he's got Ace Jack given the pre-flop action. So I'm thinking that he's probably going to end up folding, especially with how long he's thinking through the action here. He ends up, after about a minute and a half, throwing the chips into call. So we make the absolute maximum on this hand with the nuts. We know we're taking it down. Flip up our hand immediately. The pot's chipped our way.
I believe this is our Yeti Cooler of the night.
All right, give me a spin. We'll get that spread again.
That $100 bet that induced the raise, that worked out to perfection.
Absolutely. Open the door for him to get the maximum out of downhill there. Always nice.
We were both thinking that Huggy was leaving some potential value on the table by just betting 100, but wow, that's max value right there.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe he'd picked up a read of some kind. Where that's that's a good card because you have the nuts, but you usually don't expect it to be that good for you in that it's a card that can get you paid.
I mean, they should have all the
Well played.
The very next hand, there's another $10 straddle, and it folds to us in the small blind again. So I know I said earlier there's not many folds going on before the flop, but we had it twice now when we're in the small blind. So we've got a suited queen, queen 9. I feel like it's worth a raise here, so I make it 50. Probably a bit on the bigger side. I think we could do closer to 40 here, but we end up getting called again by Mike, who's got a legitimate hand with pocket 5s. So we're heads up to the flop, and it comes down deuce 4-6 with 2 hearts and a diamond, so we've got nothing but 2 overs and a backdoor diamond draw. From our history with Mike in the last hand in this scenario, I decided to go with a check this time. He's got the better hand, as we can see. He's got the pair along with the gut shot draw, and he takes the safe route, checks back, so we get a free turn. And it's a really interesting turn for our specific hands. It's the 5 of diamonds. So we pick up the queen high flush draw, and Mike picks up a set here. Given the extra equity we've got here, I decided to make a delayed c-bet here, making it $30. Unsurprisingly, Mike raises. He makes it 110. I think he could easily be representing a 3 here. I think he could have a 3 here. I think he could have 2 pair or a set. There's lots of things he could have here that beat us. But we are drawing to, not the nuts, but close to. The queen high flush is probably going to be the best hand if we hit. So I feel like we're getting a good price to call here, especially with the possible implied odds if we can get an extra bet out of Mike on the river. So I end up putting in the chips to call. Unfortunately, the river is a blank for our hand. It's an offsuit ace. It's a good card for our pre-flop raising range, but we're definitely beat here, especially when I check to Mike and he bets again on the bigger side near pot, making it $350. I don't think there's any opportunity here for us to try to come over the top and steal it. He's representing strength here. I just throw our hand away and on to the next one. 15 minutes later, we've got another pretty interesting hand that comes up. We've got $10 out there in the straddle, and Mike raises to $35 in the low jack. He gets 3 callers before it comes back to us, and we look down at ace jack suited last to act here. This feels like a really good squeeze opportunity. I know Mike's been a pretty tight player, at least from what I've seen, what he's shown down. I didn't get to see the queen 10 hand versus our queen jack earlier that he actually bluffed at, so I feel like he's got a pretty tight image. But with that said, this feels like a pretty good squeeze spot. I think we could just call, but I opt to go the other route and make a 3-bet to $200. We probably could go a little bit bigger here with all the calls out there, though, as William calls out in the chat.
And this has a chance of working. I might have gone a little bit bigger given how much money was in the middle.
That's probably true since Mike does make the call, and that encourages Doug to join along with his ace-jack suited as well. So we've got 3 to the flop in an almost $700 pot. It's a pretty good flop for the hand we're representing as it comes down king-high rainbow. It's not connected at all, there's no flush draws, so I think if we continue here, we're saying we've got a strong king or better, and I make it $225. Mike makes the call here as he should with his top pair, and Doug gets out of the way, so we're heads up to the turn, which shouldn't improve many hands as it brings a 9 of diamonds. I'm sitting here thinking what he could be calling with on the flop. I don't think it could be ace-king. When he raised pre-flop, he just called our 3-bet. He didn't come back over the top, so I'm thinking he's probably got a hand like king-queen, maybe king-jack, but I'm really thinking king-queen is probably the worst hand he's got here. And I'm wondering if we can push him off his hand with continued regression here by trying to represent ace-king ourselves. With that, I make another big raise. Mike's got a little over $1,000 behind. I bet for $650, which looks like we are committed to the hand. I think we are going to have to fold if he comes back over the top and save the little bit of money we can, since we're not getting the right odds to hit our 3 outs if he does push all in here. but it does show that we are committed to the hand. He thinks on it for a good bit, maybe 30-45 seconds, and eventually throws it away. So our bluff gets through. We made a pretty good read. We put him on a king with obviously not the best kicker. He put us on ace king probably, which is what we were trying to represent, and our bluff gets through. We take it down.
No, I like Huggy's bet. And I like the fold. Yeah.
20 minutes later, we're in the straddle again. We've got $10 out, and Mike raises to 35 in the low jack again. It folds over to Doug in the cutoff, who 3-bets to 140. Doug has not been very active at the table. He's been pretty tight, but when it folds over to us with our ace-8, actually that's wrong. The card reader didn't pick that up right. We've got ace-queen offsuit here, so ignore the 8. We've got a queen. I'm not completely sure what the right play is here. Looking back, I think we should probably just give Doug credit and throw our hand away. In the moment, I wasn't really sure what to do, and I end up making a cold call against his 3-bet, putting the chips in, hoping to see a favorable flop, and figuring out where to go from there. Mike makes the call as well, and the 3 of us take a flop, which is not favorable for us at all. No ace, no queen. Easy for us to get away here, so I check fold. The rest of the action is not really that important. I'm just kind of curious. What do you guys think about the call with the ace-queen here? Obviously, we can see Doug has kings, so it's not the best call here. If we did know his exact hand in the moment, we should be folding it probably 100% of the time given the stack sizes and the bet sizes. But against a random player that's 3-betting here in position, I'm curious what you guys would do in this spot. Would you call? Would you fold? Would you come over the top? What do you think is the right play? Let me know in the comments down below. Unfortunately, we didn't have too many more hands before the stream died. They said they updated the OBS software that runs the stream to a new version right before this one started, and unfortunately it crashed, which killed the stream for the night. But let's take a look at the results. Their stats show that we won a little over 2.3k. I think their numbers were actually off by 1,000 for me the whole game. So we actually won a little bit closer to 1.4k. Pretty good result. I'm happy with it, especially considering the fact that we were down almost 2k at the beginning. So it's about a 3.5k swing from where we were early in the session. So pretty happy with that overall. One of the other interesting stats I have on the stream is the raise first in percentage. So you can see we had a pretty high percentage here relative to our opponents. Downhill had the highest percentage with 25. We came in second place there with about 23.5%. What this means is that we were not really limping at any pots. We were raising as much as we could whenever we were coming in. Trying to show aggression here is really the takeaway. I think aggression is going to win more often than playing passively, unless, of course, maybe you're trying to trap against the right opponents. So, aggression is king, and we tried to use that to our advantage here. We'll take a look at the VPIP too. These aren't the stats from the very end of the stream since it cut off, but close to the end of the stream, we had a 32, almost 33% VPIP. The highest was Downhill with 46.5%. Ours was the second highest. We were tied with Sam on our left. But basically, we were coming in to a lot of pots. We were raising a lot. We were just trying to bully when we could, take advantage of our strong hands. And we weren't afraid to get involved, which I think is definitely going to get you invited to more streams by playing more hands than less. Obviously, the fewer hands you play, the less you're going to get invited back. But I think the VPIP also just kind of speaks to the fact that we did have some playable hands. I've been on some streams before we were card dead, and that was obviously not the case this time. Alright guys, like I said, we're doing a special giveaway for the 50th episode of the vlog. First, I want to call out Sam, who was sitting to my left. Met him the night of the live stream. He's actually the CEO of Lorenta Gourmet Nuts and Candies, and he's provided 5 1-pound bags of nuts, candies of various varieties that we are going to be giving away on the vlog. In addition to that, I'm going to be giving away 3 of the custom Huggy card protectors. It's so easy to enter. All you've got to do is like the video and leave a comment down below. You don't even have to subscribe, though. If you want to, it helps the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But for the sake of the giveaway, just like the video and leave a comment. So the contest is open for 6 days. Leave your like, leave your comment in the next 6 days by the morning of Monday, November 29th, 2022, 10 a.m. CST time zone. As long as you do that, you have a chance to win. I'm going to be randomly selecting 3 people who leave comments down below and who have also liked the video. The first person I select is going to receive the 5 bags of 1-pound nuts and candies. They'll also receive a custom Huggy card protector, and then the second and third names that are selected will receive the custom Huggy card protector itself. So go ahead, hit the like, leave a comment. That's all you gotta do. Subscribe if you want to. Really appreciate it. Helps the channel. Otherwise, thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.